Hey, what is up, everybody? Welcome back to my YouTube channel. I have something that I'd like to talk to you about today, and that topic is how pop culture sees transgender people, or how pop culture portrays transgender people, and its subsequent effect on how society views transgender people as a whole. This is a pretty loaded topic. It's something that I've been thinking about a lot recently because I've seen so many instances where people on news channels or on TikTok or whatever it is, they go online and they start spouting all this shit about how transgender people are perverts or they're predators and they're taking advantage of people, and they're saying that we just want to take advantage of little kids and stuff. And as I started to dig into it and started to do more research on this, I realized that a lot of it has to do with the way that movies and TV shows portray transgender people. And so today I'm just going to get into that, and I'm going to talk to you guys a little bit about what I was able to research. Something that also kind of inspired me to talk about this was the fact that last year, the ACLU recorded at least, I think 508 bills that were introduced, and nearly 84 of the 508 bills that were introduced got passed into law, which is roughly 17%, if my math is correct. Most of these laws that were introduced revolved around transgender people, specifically banning transgender people from gendered spaces. But even worse, there were also bills that were put into law that prevent transgender people from accessing life-saving healthcare. And while this stuff may seem kind of startling, or for someone who's not really in the loop about this whole war on transgenderism, it may seem kind of out of pocket, why is all of this happening? It's pretty obvious once you start to take a closer look at how American television and films, how they portray transgender people or transgender characters. You can start to really see and connect a very harmful stereotype of what trans people are. And it demonstrates a really troubling history that, in my opinion, still contributes, no matter how far back the media was made, there's still a negative connotation to it, and there's still reasons that people will refer back to it when they're discussing what transgender people are. In the past decades, there are pieces of media out there that specifically target transgender people and make it out as if we are dangerous or disturbing, or there's something wrong with us, or we have a mental illness. Firstly, I want to talk about the horror genre. There's been a long history of media in that genre perpetuating really harmful stereotypes about transgender people. To use an example that I know most of you people will be familiar with, we're going to talk about Buffalo Bill, the serial killer from Silence of the Lambs. And while it's never explicitly stated that Buffalo Bill is transsexual or transgender, Buffalo Bill is really frustrated because he has failed to qualify for gender-affirming surgeries multiple times, and so he takes out his frustrations on his victims, which are women, unfortunately, and he flays them, skins them, because he wants to wear their skin to become a woman, since he cannot get the surgery himself. There's one thing specifically that I want to address in Silence of the Lambs and in Buffalo Bill's character arc, I guess, whatever you want to call it, and that's the kind of sensual or erotic, I guess, dance that he does in front of the mirror where he's tucking. And he kind of displays behaviors that allude to his gender dysphoria, and that's kind of the moment where the audience connects. He's committing these grotesque skinning of his victims and stuff because of his gender dysphoria, and I really want to talk about how that has kind of created an image that people have never forgotten, because it portrayed a transgender woman, or an assumed transgender woman, to be this predator. There's no better way to put it. The famous quote from Buffalo Bill where he says, "It puts the lotion on its skin," or "it gets the hose," that is a really damaging quote as well, because it kind of puts the idea into people's minds that Buffalo Bill does not see women as people. He just sees them as objects, and that's why he refers to them as it. And I've actually had people now in my comments on some of my previous YouTube videos, specifically the ones where I'm talking about issues that transgender women face, come and say that transgender women do not see women as real people. And that's something that I find really frustrating, especially because as a transgender person and as a lover of horror movies, and especially as a lover of the Silence of the Lambs, it's hard to appreciate a piece of media while acknowledging at the same time. It's the whole, I guess that's part of the whole debate of separate the art from the artist, but separate the serial killer transsexual from the normal trans people in everyday society. But yeah, it's just one of the things that I kind of noticed when I was doing my research, where that's where a lot of the ideology of like, oh, transgender people, transgender women specifically, are predatory and they prey on women, and they're just pretending they want to dress up as a woman. But it's not only horror movies and the horror genre that does that. There are other genres of media that do this as well. Something else that I noticed is that comedy movies and comedy TV shows are also really guilty of portraying transgender people as these kind of like caricatures or like extremely stereotypical people. And again, it just further perpetuates these negative ideas of what trans people are, but it does it in a lighthearted way. And so people can say, oh, like, don't take it so seriously, like it's just a joke, like you people need to learn how to take a joke. I'm going to be using transgender women as my main example in this video, just because unfortunately they are more often than trans men the butt of the joke. And even more so, it's often their real sex that becomes the butt of whatever punchline it is. For example, I don't know if you guys have ever seen the movie Ace Ventura: Pet Detective. It's a pretty old movie. It's got Jim Carrey in it. There's a specific scene that I wanted to talk to you guys about where the title character, Ace, he is so disgusted with himself after having kissed Lois Einhorn. I think that's her name, Lois, because it's revealed that Lois is actually not a real woman. She's actually a different character from a previous scene who goes by the name of Ray, like Ray Finkel or something like that. And Ace is so disgusted by the fact that he and Lois kissed that he literally pukes, and he uses like an entire tub of toothpaste to brush his teeth, and he strips off his clothes and he burns them in the trash can.
Finkel is Einhorn! Einhorn is a man! Einhorn is a man!
All over the fact that he kissed a trans woman, and he's so disgusted by the fact that he kissed a trans woman that he has to go through this whole like montage of just like cleansing himself of his actions. And then later on in the movie, there's another scene where Ace like rips off Lois's pants and shows off her bulge in her pants, which kind of like again exposes her real sex. And all of the other men in the room start like gagging and vomiting and like running away. And again, it's just the fact that Lois is a trans woman, and so she becomes the butt of the joke, is because she's not a real woman. And the fact that all of these men were attracted to a man, they're now disgusted with themselves. They can't believe that they were attracted to a trans woman. And yeah, just really, really disgusting stuff. It's portrayed as a joke, and you're expected to take it lightly. You're expected to kind of laugh it off and be like, oh, haha, like, that's funny, but it's really not funny. Like, you're making a mockery of real people, and that has made a huge impact on how people treat trans people in the real world now. Making a woman's real sex and showcasing a man's fearful disgust about their real sex persists and perpetuates the stereotypes that lead people to believe that trans women specifically are predators. And that's just not the case, especially when there's literal studies that show that transgender people are 4 times more likely than their cis counterparts to be victims of violent hate crimes. And it really grinds my gears when true crime TV shows such as Law and Order and SVU go so far as to blame transgender people and make it out to seem like it's our fault that we are subjected to these violent crimes. Oops. Sorry, I'm getting heated. I'm not sure which TV show it's from, but there's a quote where somebody says that the world isn't ready for the whole gender ideology stuff, and the world isn't ready to embrace the transgender community. And there's even another quote from a different episode where they say that it's the trans woman's own fault for playing a dangerous game. And so again, it feels like being transgender is seen as this really, really lucrative and like rich source of just pure drama or comedy for writers and producers. And it's starting to feel really just tiring and like repetitive and limiting, because it's like, oh my fucking God, like, we get it. There's only so many times that we can see the same kinds of story being told over and over again until it's like, holy shit, like, move on. Like, we get it. You guys see trans people as either the villain or the victim. Like, I understand that that's how you see trans people. You have a very black and white view of us, but it's scary because that directly translates to how people see us in real life. I don't know if the writers and producers of shows like these or movies like these just don't really care, or if, you know, they're just that ignorant about it. Like, I don't know about you guys, but I'm ready to just see like some basic ass transgender representation in media. Like, I don't even need a feel-good story. I don't need a heroic comeback of a trans character. Like, I just need some dude in the show to be casually revealed to be transgender, and he's just like, yeah, I'm trans, by the way, and nobody reacts to it. I want that sort of story. Why can't we just have like some dude who just happens to be trans and like that's it? There's no punchline attached to it. There's no villain or victim attached to it. None of that shit. They just happen to be trans, because that's how it actually is in real life. Because we're not these walking caricatures and stereotypes that the media and pop culture portrays us to be. And I've just been really frustrated with that recently. So I had to come on here and I had to make a video about it. I hope it made sense. I hope my points were cohesive and you were able to kind of follow me through. If you have any other questions or anything like that, please leave them in the comments. I'd be happy to have a further discussion with you guys. Or if you have any pieces of media that portray trans people as just some dude or just some lady, or even if it's like a feel-good story about trans people, please leave them in the comments. I'd be happy to check it out. If you guys are still watching this point, thank you so much for sticking around till the end, and I will see y'all in the next one.